Have you ever wondered how some people can overcome the most tragic and horrible circumstances and setbacks in their life and then not only overcome them but go on to extraordinary achievement and success? On the other hand, there are individuals who treat their circumstances or setbacks as if their world is about to end and they never seem to recover. Sometimes these two different types of individuals are members of the same family, siblings with the same upbringing, but two very different outcomes. One motivated to succeed, the other using life's curveballs as an excuse to fail. I often wondered what is the difference between these two groups of people, whether it was luck, but I don't think it's luck. I think it has more to do with a vital life skill that we are all born with, and whether we nurture that skill or suppress it. And that life skill is resilience, the ability to overcome and recover from obstacles and setbacks, resilience. And I say we're all born with this, and I look no further than a toddler trying to walk to demonstrate this point. Have you ever witnessed a toddler taking their first steps? They pull themselves up on the furniture, take a few steps, they fall down, they get up, they take a few more steps, they fall down, they might hurt themselves in the process, but they keep getting up, and with the support and encouragement of their parents and caregivers, they keep trying until they walk, and pretty soon mum and dad can't keep up with them. Obstacles and setbacks confront us throughout our lives. Some minor and some have devastating consequences, and it's how we bounce back. If we bounce back at all, that will define our character. Unfortunately, I think we are actively suppressing this quality in our children by the way we are raising and educating them. In our desire to protect them, we are setting them up for failure. Not just in the short term, but throughout their life. There is this philosophy of everyone's a winner and wrapping them up in cotton wool. Yes, that protects them from disappointment, but it also destroys their resilience. And when this skill is suppressed, it can have lifelong consequences. It will affect how they handle failure at school or university, a relationship ending, termination of employment or redundancy, the diagnosis of a serious illness, or the death of someone very close. But I believe this resilience can be strengthened and harnessed like any muscle in our body. And I learned this the hard way. In 2008, life handed me my most significant obstacle, one which I didn't think I was going to overcome. At the beginning of 2008, I started experiencing some visual problems and then pins and needles in the lower half of my body that stayed with me from the time I woke up until the time I went to sleep every single day for 6 months. I knew something wasn't right, but I tried to ignore it, hoping that it would resolve itself. Well, it didn't. And then my wife made an appointment for me to see my local doctor, and he was concerned about my symptoms, and he sent me off for a number of investigations. In what seemed like an eternity, I underwent an MRI, a lumbar puncture, some visual field testing, blood testing, neurological review, all of which led to the room of my neurologist on the 24th of July 2008. This was 2 days before my 34th birthday. The neurologist said to me, "Anthony, you have multiple sclerosis." And then he pointed out the bright white lesions on my brain and spine on the MRI scan. He said, "Unfortunately, there's no cure for MS, but we can put you on medication that will slow the progress of the disease and reduce the chances of relapses." I was absolutely devastated. My thoughts flashed to Tina, a very close relative of mine who had MS, and I watched how MS had transformed her over the years from the most vibrant, energetic woman to being bedbound and completely helpless. My understanding of MS was that everyone ended up like that. And watching Tina's health and physicality deteriorate to that level, I said to myself a number of times throughout her journey that I would rather be dead than go through that. And here I was, in 2008, facing that very real possibility. I remember walking out of the neurologist's room, tears running down my face, turning to Tanya saying, "How is this happening to me?" And I know she was just as frightened as I was, but she squeezed my hand and said, "You're going to be all right, we'll get through this." Now, it's still really difficult to explain the sense of humiliation and devastation that I felt at the time and for months thereafter. I couldn't help but think of my future and what it was going to look like. I had a 4-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter, and I kept thinking of how I was going to be able to kick the football with my son, whether I would be able to do that, whether I would be able to dance with my daughter or walk her down the aisle. And most of all, I didn't want to be a burden on my family. For fleeting moments, I considered ending my life, as I didn't want to face those possibilities. And the remainder of 2008 was a psychological hell, and I spiraled into a deep depression. Then I stumbled across a wonderful human being by the name of Professor George Jelinek. Professor George Jelinek is a medical practitioner who has MS. And when he was diagnosed, he threw himself into the literature and studied lifestyle factors that affected MS and its progression. And he developed a program of lifestyle factors, including a strict low saturated fat diet, which was based on plant and seafood, exercise, meditation, good old vitamin D. And that program, the OMS program, has proven to give people with MS real hope of a normal life. My wife and I attended a retreat in the Yarra Valley in Victoria, Australia the following August. This was run by Professor Jelinek and the OMS team. When I first got to the retreat, it was very confronting, as there were a number of people who attended there that were quite disabled by MS. And I felt ashamed to be associated with anyone with MS, let alone anyone with significant disabilities. But by the end of the retreat, 5 days later, I was so inspired by their resilience, their courage and determination to do whatever it took to improve their lifestyle. And I decided then and there that I was going to do the same. And I embraced the OMS program wholeheartedly. Now, initially, those changes to my diet, the introduction of meditation to my daily life were quite challenging, but within months I started feeling better. And with the support of family and friends, I stayed true to the diet and to the lifestyle changes. The blurry vision and the pins and needles disappeared, and I stand here today fitter and healthier than I've ever been, and symptom-free from MS. I surrounded myself with positive people, and only positive people, that would support my journey to wellness. Over the course of the last 12 years since my diagnosis, I feel that the resilience that had become suppressed in me has re-emerged and become strengthened. And now I feel I have the inner strength to overcome any obstacle that might come my way. MS changed my life, but not in the negative way that I first anticipated. I look at life very differently now, and I have an extraordinary sense of gratitude. And in some ways, I'm grateful for my MS diagnosis. With that gratitude in mind, I always wanted to find a way to give back to Professor Jelinek and the OMS program for saving my life. In late 2015, I came up with the crazy idea of running the New York Marathon. Now, while I was relatively fit, I had never run a marathon before, or anywhere near that length. And given the prestige of the New York Marathon, I thought I could use it as an opportunity to raise awareness for the OMS program. And while I was at it to try and raise some serious money for the OMS charity and the wonderful work that it does. One day when I was running, I mentioned this idea to a couple of my running mates, waiting for them to tell me that it was a crazy idea and not to do it. But not only did they say it was a great idea, but they committed there and then to joining me to run the New York Marathon. Over the course of the next 3 or 4 months, I convinced 24 of my family and close friends to join me to run the New York Marathon the following November 2016. Team OMS was born. Now, while there were a few members of the team that could be regarded as serious runners, the majority of the team had absolutely no business running, let alone running a marathon. And during the course of the next 10 months or so, training for the marathon, each of the runners, myself included, had setbacks, injuries, psychological demons, and family and friends telling them they couldn't run and shouldn't be running a marathon. My wife Tanya, who has never shown any interest in running, threw her support behind me and committed to running a marathon. She started training, but yet a month into her training, doctors found a tumour growing on her rib, which they thought was cancerous and needed to be removed immediately. She went into hospital a week after, had it surgically removed and spent a few days in intensive care. Now, thankfully, the tumour turned out to be benign, but she had to recover from the surgery and then start running again and training for the marathon. That was just one of a number of stories of individuals' journeys throughout 2006 that led us to New York on the 6th of November. And every single member of the Team OMS crossed the finish line that day at various times. And here's the most amazing thing. What started out as my journey, being one of inspiration for others to support me, turned out to be 23 other people providing me and their own family and friends with the greatest inspiration, the greatest demonstration of resilience and overcoming obstacles, overcoming their own demons, achieving something that not many people achieve. We all wear our finisher's medal very proudly, and it's something that no one will ever take away from us. One of my closest friends started training not even owning a pair of running shoes, and he was overweight and faced his own obstacles and injuries during his training, yet he overcame them all and crossed the line. And he had travelled to New York with his young family, and his son, who was 8 or 9 at the time, wrote a letter to him just after the marathon. And within that letter, his son had explained to his father that throughout his training and the running of the marathon, he had shown him that nothing was impossible. What an amazing lesson to teach your children. And that sparked the passion in me to set the same example for my own children about resilience, about overcoming obstacles. And that Tanya and I had shown our children, that nothing was impossible. And it then got me thinking about the importance of spreading that message and instilling those values in our children and more widely. As I said earlier, resilience is something we're born with. And rather than wrapping up our children in cotton wool and protecting them from obstacles and setbacks, we should be giving them the tools and skills to harness their resilience. And I have promised to always give my children that example. That life is not easy, and it's how we respond to difficulties and setbacks that makes us and defines us. And each of us as parents, as husbands and wives, as teachers, as employers, have a role to play to nurture and cultivate this skill and harness it in our younger generation. Because with that, the world has endless possibilities for our children. Thank you.